Hola students, buenos dias. We are back. Welcome to SEL Session 5. But before we get started with Session 5, we have to do our recap of Session 4, Effective Communication Skills. So we'll start with our recap and we'll move on from there.
Effective communication skills is so important. We have to ensure that we have an opportunity to speak well and get assertive, as we said. One of the great things about being assertive is that you can let people feel what you're talking about without them feeling like you're coming on too aggressive or that you are being passive. So when you're talking, think about this. Are you looking them in the eye when you're talking to a person? Are you saying exactly what you want to say as though you've written it down? Some presidents, they actually write their speeches. They actually have what they call a teleprompter that tells them exactly what to say so that they never get lost and that they're able to communicate effectively in a way that will be received by everyone. Now, we know that you may not be the president, but you still have to speak up for yourself, and you still have to speak up in situations where you may not really feel like you are always that smart or competent enough to talk about it. But listen, if you think about it, you can talk about it, and you can talk about it in an assertive way.
Yes, I agree. I think one of the things I personally, I don't know about the rest of our crew, but I personally hope that you learned what type of communicator you are. I think that was so important because a lot of times we don't know that. I was able to say, I had to admit, I can be aggressive at times, and I'm working on becoming more and more assertive. Am I doing a good job, Mr. Bradley?
Yes, she is. If you guys really believe that.
I am doing better with my assertion of my communication. But I just want to shout out our very own little Miss Morgan. I'm not going to call your last name so that you won't feel any type of way, but I was very, very proud of her. She didn't really want to talk on camera, and she was able to do that because she's very passive. So kudos to you, Morgan. I am very, very proud of you, and hopefully we'll get a whole lot closer to that assertive communication for you.
That's so funny because I was going to shout out the whole entire 7th grade. I tell you one thing, 7th grade is stepping up and showing out. 7th grade for the 3rd time in a row have been the highest number of participants in our group at 10-15.
Yes, they are.
6th grade is close behind. 8th grade, you're struggling. 8th grade, you're struggling. Like, I need you there.
Come on, 8th grade. We just need you to come in at 10-15.
And the reason why
come on, 8th grade, I believe in you.
Yeah, and we need you there because you offer a very unique perspective. You've been here for 2 years.
Yes.
You can offer some insight into a lot of our topics and a lot of our discussions that other students might not necessarily have because they just haven't been here and experienced it.
Yes.
So we really, really do need more 8th grade participation. So 8th grade teachers, 8th grade students, we need you there. 7th grade, we knocking it out the box because, 7th grade is my grade. So that's what we do. That's what we do.
That's the passive aggressive.
Again, is that not what we do?
He was throwing shade.
Is that not what we do?
To the other grades.
But I'm welcoming the 8th graders. I'm welcoming, but again, as you see, my 7th graders, we lead by example. So that's all I want to say to that.
We'll take on the challenge. 8th grade, we love challenges.
Okay.
We love challenges. We're going to take it on. We're going to have more 8th graders in this next session.
Yeah, I'm going to shout out Mr. McLean up in there. I'm going to shout out Miss Young, Miss Leffler. I see you in there. That's right. I'm going to shout out Miss Bush, Miss Watson, Miss Freeman. What up? Where my people at? Mr. Dillard, I see you in there, boy. Mr. DeFresne. That's the way to do your thing. That's what we doing up in here. That's what we do. I'm sorry. I'm just saying. Led by Dr. Robinson. Shout out to you. That's the way to be the leader of the group. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, Miss Gooden. I know we need to shame him next time because we've been doing this, right? Okay,
I'm just saying.
Let's go.
Sound good.
Let's go, Miss Gooden.
Okay.
We are not Do you hear me?
Yeah.
We are not
Yeah.
new to this. We
Okay,
are
you're
true
not
to
new?
this.
Okay.
So let's go, Miss
New,
Goody.
not true?
Let's go.
Okay.
8th grade, let's go.
See, we don't have to get ready because we stay ready. You know
Okay,
what I'm saying?
all right.
That's all I'm
And so
saying.
now we're going to move on to SEL
No.
session
5.
5. I just wanted to see if they were listening. So our next session is part 2 to this relationship building that we're trying to teach you. It's about active listening. It is very, very important to be an active listener. Yeah. And remember, all of this is about relationship building. There are 3 parts: effective communication skills, active listening, and conflict resolution. So this week we're going to touch on active listening, and we hope that you are actively listening. Now let's talk about relationship building through active listening. This is series 2 of that relationship building piece, because this is what we're trying to teach our student body, how to build healthy relationships. And we started out with the effective communication. Now we're on active listening.
And part of that effective communication is understanding what type of communicator you are, but also a big chunk of that is understanding and getting how communication truly works. And understanding the active listening piece of it is a real big key. So make sure you guys are paying attention, and we're gonna go ahead and get started with slide 2.
Relationship skills.
What is the definition of relationship skills? Relationship skills is the ability to build positive relationships, especially with diverse individuals and groups, using a variety of methods such as active listening and communication and conflict resolution skills. These skills also include the ability to resist pressure and to seek out and after help.
So now let's watch this little video about relationship skills, and there's a little scenario we want you to pay attention to because we're going to discuss the options for that particular scenario.
Relationship skills. This is the ability to manage social relationships with peers or adults and to maintain those relationships well over time. Let's take a look at a scenario. Alex has very few friends. He is shy and afraid to start conversations with others. What are some ways Alex can make new friends? What is one way he could start a conversation with someone who he doesn't know that well? How do you make new friends? Stay connected with us on social media.
Okay, let's talk about Alex. The reflection questions regarding Alex being shy and trying to make new friends. So we want you guys, this is where we want you to participate as well. We're going to start out with, what are some ways Alex can make new friends? So we know a lot of times it is very difficult to make friends. So it makes it even more difficult when a person is shy. So what are some suggestions for our shy people? We want you to put it in the chat. We want the students that are not so shy, that it's not so difficult for you to make friends. Let's think about some suggestions to help Alex and our other shy students to make new friends.
This is one of the things that we kind of talked about last week in last week's group with our, not last week, well, the last session, excuse me, of group, when we actually had this discussion. And a lot of people, especially students who become new students in the school or move in late, they gave some great insight. So we really want you guys to think about this, because sometimes this can be really tough, especially for those shy students. Y'all would think Mr. Bradley is not shy, but Mr. Bradley is extremely shy at times, and it's tough sometimes to make new friends. And so you do, and there are some things that can and will help, and you guys have a lot of good insight. So we really want you to make sure and put that in the chat before we sit up there and kind of talk about some things. So we're going to give you probably another 10 seconds to put it in the chat, and then Ms. White and I will kind of talk about some of the things and hit some of the highlights. 3, 2, 1. Ms. White, what you think? How can we have some new ways or some ways to make friends?
So I feel that what we're talking about now is critical to making new friends as it relates to actively listening. You'll hear conversations or even discussions in class. If you're paying attention to people that are participating in things, you can learn about someone through discussion. So you may learn that you have some common experiences with someone, or maybe even controversy. I'll use myself and one of my friends here at Conyers Middle School, Coach Davis. We became friends through controversy because he's a Falcons fan and I am definitely a Who Dat. So he actually, of course, being the antagonistic Falcon fan that he is, he approached me because I am a wonderful Who Dat.
Okay.
So we developed our friendship through controversy.
Gotcha.
So it happens. So there are many different ways that you can make friends, and it doesn't always involve just, hey, who are you, how are you, I'm so and so.
Yep.
Sharing common experiences can open a door for friendships.
Yep, and that's a great segue to when you're sitting up there moving up in grade levels. I always say that is absolutely the best time to make new friends because it's new to everyone. It's one of those things that, sometimes it's hard to find a common or even understand or how to get to a common denominator to where you can kind of have that discussion with everyone. But when you're moving up to a grade, it's new to everyone. You guys haven't been 6th graders before. You guys haven't been 7th graders before. And you guys haven't been 8th graders before. So each time you move up a new grade or you're about to move up a new grade offers a great opportunity for you to actually engage in a conversation with someone who you might never had a conversation with because you have a common, Experience. Thank you. There you go. I was going to say a common reflection point, but that's better. A common experience that you can sit up there and kind of dwell on or talk about.
And since you're speaking on grade levels, which is very true, but there's also for an opportunity for the 7th grader or the 8th grader to kind of share their experience with the younger students to say, hey, if you're the 7th grader and you see some 6th graders, hey, welcome to Conyers Middle, I'm 7th grade, last year I was 6th grade, these are some of the mistakes I made, this is what happens around here, same with 8th grade, hey, look, I'm in 8th grade now. This is what I know about these particular teachers in 7th grade, just to kind of help a person out. So just kind of, and that's not necessarily a common experience because, as you say, that's new to the other person, but you are extending yourself to that person, and that's an opportunity to open a door to a friendship.
Absolutely. And one of the creative things that I think teachers do a great job with is they put you guys in small groups sometimes to work out different things. In those small groups, again, you have a common thing you're working on in regards to a subject. It can also spark up a conversation. So opportunities are going to be there that are created organically, naturally, and what we talk about in regards to organically, but then also opportunities are there what teachers and support staff and leadership actually put in place to help you guys sit up there and actually make new friends or get an opportunity to make new friends. What about number 2?
I think you touched on it. What is one way he can start a conversation with someone he doesn't know that well? So I think we did touch on that, speaking about that common experiences that people have, or even just maybe asking a question.
Yep.
Asking a particular question about something you want to know, maybe as it relates to something on TV or something that's happening, a new rapper or whatever it is you just have a question about. And hey, did you see whatever last night? Did you hear about what happened, whatever? So starting just asking a question can spark up a conversation, even for the shy person. And we do understand, and the shy, I think, is reflective of what last week we talked about, passive.
Yep.
You know, a lot of passive people are shy, but sometimes you have to come out of that for success and progression, because you can't just remain quiet or passive and expect to gain friends.
Yeah.
So there is a point where you have to be able to assert yourself and speak and have a conversation, you know, with someone. And hey, maybe that you won't have to speak again because that person's personality is bigger than yours, and so they'll actually hold the friendship and do all more or less all the communicating, and you don't have to say as much, but you have to open the door.
I'm a G.I. Joe fan, and I think we hit on this a lot sometimes, of knowing is half the battle. So if we know these things, that it can be difficult for certain people, if we make it more welcoming and we sit up there and again initiate or make our environment more welcoming, it's going to make people feel a whole lot better and allow these conversations to actually take place, and it'll make it easier on everyone else. And I always sit up there and think, you know, that's part of our job right now. We're trying to introduce things so you guys will know, so you can make better decisions and help the environment improve just by knowing. So if we know people have a difficult time starting a conversation, those who don't, go ahead and step up and go ahead and sit up there and again make that environment a lot better for other people. What about the next one? How do you make new friends?
Now that's a good question. That's something we definitely want you to put in the chat. And when you put it in the chat, you're actually giving others ideas, something that they may not have thought about or that they don't do, and that's opening a door for introduction and awareness with other students. So
Yep.
we definitely want you to put that in the chat. How do you make new friends? And I'll speak on it myself. I personally am one of those people who kind of sit back. I probably would be viewed as shy to some, or maybe even antisocial to others. Who knows?
Wow. Wow. She's sharing right now. She's in the same place. But I would agree, you know, to a certain extent. I really would. I am an observer.
Yes.
As well. So I get
So
it.
I kind of, you know, sit back and I know who I am. And I know who I will vibe with and who I won't vibe with. And so those that I feel comfortable with, you know, that I know I'm a vibe and I feel comfortable, that's who I communicate more with.
Yeah.
And so observing is critical for me in making new friends.
Makes sense. It really does. Again, I think a lot of the things that we talked about in the first 2 points kind of sit up there and lead you to the last point of, you know, friendships happen over time to
Yes.
me. Friendships are built over time to me. So there's a lot of people I'm cool with.
Absolutely.
Not a lot of people I'm friends with.
Right. And
So I think those two distinct differences are key to understand that. You don't have to be friends with everybody, but
Right.
you have to be respectful and what I call cool. Be able to at least be able to be cool.
Right,
with people.
absolutely. I'm sure many of your parents are teaching you everyone is not your friend.
Right.
And that
Yep.
is just very true. But the most important piece is what we are trying to teach you, building healthy relationships. Because everything is a relationship. You have teacher to student relationships, peer to peer relationships. You know, we said all that. Your parents, that's a relationship between parent child. You have siblings. So all of those different scenarios are relationships, and it's just important that you know how to be engaged in healthy relationships. Some of you are dating or trying to date
Oh,
or
Lord.
something. I
Oh,
know
Lord.
that's a whole nother story.
Oh Lord.
So that means that you have, you know, those type of relationships, and so we want to be certain that you have the skills to be involved in healthy relationships.
I'm glad Ms. White brought that up because healthy relationships are so important. This is one of the things, and when we're talking about these things, this is one of the things that transcends this building alone, this school alone, this time alone. You will need to have healthy relationships your entire life. This is one skill that you will need to sit up there and have. And so We really, really want you to get this. And if you have any questions, please make sure you guys attend the group at 10:15 and ask those questions. Even if you put it in the chat, even if you don't feel comfortable verbalizing it, you at least put it out there to where we can have that discussion about it, because somebody will have an answer, or somebody might have a life experience, or somebody could have some insight that can help you.
Yes.
All right, moving on to the next one. Scenario 2, check this out.
Let's discuss relationship skills. This involves the ability to create meaningful relationships with peers and to make those relationships last over time. This also involves handling conflict that may arise in relationships in a healthy and productive way. This skill requires people to communicate effectively, to collaborate with each other, and to care for one another. Trust is also a key ingredient to a successful and long-lasting friendship. Let's look at a scenario. This is James. James is very sociable and talkative. He has a lot of energy. Sometimes James can talk too much and it annoys his friends. He often interrupts others and won't let them share their thoughts or opinions. Reflection questions. What do you think is the most important quality for a successful friendship? Why do you think James's friends get annoyed with him? Can you think of a time when you had to have a difficult conversation with a close friend? Tell us about it. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and be sure to follow us on social media at Lessons for SEO.
Now, let's reflect on James. And remember what Mr. Bradley said. You can put questions in the chat. So if you see anything happening on any video and you have a question and you're going to join us in the 10:15 session, just kind of jot it down so you can remember to present that in that 10:15 session.
Yep.
So let's start with the reflection questions. What do you think is the most important quality for a successful friendship?
Put that in the chat for us. Put that in the chat. And
So the video talked about trust.
It did. And remember the last time we talked about friendships kind of happen over time. So I think that's where that internal building of trust and someone showing you that they're willing to be your friend and showing you that they're a good friend is very important to me. Is
so
very important.
You would say trust is important.
Trust is important, but more so, and I don't know if this is going into trust, but just more so just loyalty, I guess, or just making sure you're showing me that you're a good friend over time and over different scenarios versus just being there.
Absolutely.
I think, just that actively showing,
Yeah, for me, honesty and loyalty is truly one of the top things for me.
Makes
and I
sense.
guess, trust goes hand in hand with loyalty because quite naturally I can trust someone that's loyal to me.
Yeah.
So, but honesty is, please don't lie to me.
Yeah.
Do not, please don't.
Now I will say
so
this because
unnecessary.
and it's almost, I'm gonna give y'all a scenario. Help me with this one, y'all. Help me with this one because this was a tough one for my friend group. One of our good friends' girlfriend cheated on him, and we knew about it.
Well, that might be too much. But
Yes, you know what I'm saying? That was a tough one for us as a group.
But since middle school,
You know what I'm saying?
tried to be in relationships,
Yes, they
I guess we
do.
can. And so, do you tell or don't? Is it a true friend to not tell or? Well, for me, as I just said, don't lie to me if I ask a question.
Got you. But
so that's not lying to me. But you not saying anything, I wouldn't necessarily call that a lie. But I do feel like that might kind of tiptoe around your loyalty.
got you. Okay.
For
okay.
me.
Okay. I just want to put that because again, that might be a little closer to our CMS family's kind of thought process or experience, and that's a tough one. I'm not gonna lie. I told him I did. I just felt like he needed to know. and then make that decision from there.
Right.
But that was my choice. Some of my friends didn't agree, and so those are one of those things that you kind of sit up here and think about. All right, what about number 2? Why do you think James' friends get annoyed with him? What was it that he might have been doing that made them feel annoyed?
Well, of course, because James liked to talk, and so James interrupted a lot. So it might be viewed as James was aggressive with, interjecting and interrupting the conversation. So others may have felt violated with his interruptions and not feeling that he was validating them and their conversations. Because if you keep interrupting someone, it appears to the other person that what they're saying is not important.
Right.
So that can be annoying in many situations.
Yeah, you never want to be the friend that just only talks and kind of unloads on your other friends without listening back and actually giving them that time and respect to actually get out what they need to say. Or if they have something that they have to unload about, it's not always all about you.
Right, the active listening goes both ways.
Yep.
So can you think of a time, so this kind of segues right into this final question, can you think of a time that you had to have a difficult conversation with a close friend? It says tell us about it in the chat, but then we decided, hey, this is something that we want to talk about in our group session.
Yep.
If you know you're not going to be in the group session.
No, we ain't even give you that option. No. I need you to. We're gonna hold off on this answer, and we want to have this discussion at 10:15. I gave you an insight or an example of what I had to have a conversation about with my close friend. I want you guys to have an example and have a discussion when we bring this back up at the 10:15 group. So I want us to hold off on this one, and we're going to bring this back up at 10:15. Remember, 8th grade, I need you there. 10:15.
Yes,
7th
8th grade,
grade,
we have to show up and show out.
Yep.
Let's go.
Yep, 7th grade, we always represent.
And you
but I
too,
want
good.
all the 7th graders there. 6th grade, I need you there. 10:15, all right?
So now let's talk about active listening and what this means. We want you to visualize what active listening looks like. And so here you are with 4 different points that kind of describes active listening. So listener is fully engaged and understands. What does it mean to you to be fully engaged? Put your answers in the chat, because that can look different for many people. So we want to hear from you. What does it mean to be fully engaged? Then also, you'll see the other things. Paying attention, response when appropriate, paraphrase or summarize what is said. So, a lot of times people don't know when to respond when appropriate.
Right. And so many times that when we talk about being fully engaged, and the reason why Miss White was saying that, because it can look different to other people. And so we really want you to sit there and look at that chat and see what other people are saying, because person A could have a totally different idea what fully engaged looks like as compared to person B, right? It'll give you some insight to where you can sit up there and see what others are kind of thinking and how others feel like fully engaged is. Responding appropriately, that's so tough sometimes. It really is, because a lot of times we are sitting up there when someone is talking, especially when someone is saying something we don't necessarily agree with, right? We're so focused on, or we're thinking about what we want to say and get out versus the words that are coming out their mouth. What movie was that from? What movie was that from? I think that was Rush Hour. Listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth. Rush Hour. Okay, let's go. We gotta listen to the words in order for us to respond appropriately. So if we're just thinking about, oh my goodness, I can't wait to say this, you could miss out on such valuable information that maybe you just completely, again, lose, and then now you go left with your comment or statement, and they've already covered it, and they've already either apologized or they've already explained how it was their fault and they were sorry and blah, 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 blah. But the only thing you're sitting up here saying is, or thinking is, how you want to come back and respond negatively. And I will say this too, responding appropriately is so much harder than responding negatively. We can respond negatively to all kinds of different situations. That's an easy button deal. It takes some work and it takes some practice to learn how to respond appropriately. And that's what we want you guys to sit up here and start doing now. And that's why we're trying to give you some of these tools.
Now, how to build relationships virtually. And again, we want to talk about healthy relationships. So here are 3 bullet points to building relationships virtually. We know that this is difficult. We've heard the students say that, I can't talk to my friends and I can't make new friends and those things because we're working remotely or virtually.
Yep.
So one of the things, the first thing it says is be present and visible. And this is something we don't see a lot of.
No, we don't. We need, this is I won't say a complaint, but this is a frustration from teachers as well as staff of just making sure you have your cameras on. I think part of this too would be able to tackle some of your guys' frustration and some of your guys' thoughts of, you don't get a chance to talk to your other peers. You don't, schedule-wise and how everything is set up, it is very, very tough to build in that time in order to be able to do it. It would help if you could see other people. I know it would help with me. It's very frustrating when I come to a class and all I keep seeing is names of students and I have no clue what they look like or even if they're there and present. So just simply turning on your cameras during school time and school hours helps. It really, really does.
I think also one of the things another student may be, like myself or you, Mr. Bradley, who said we were observers. Mm-hmm. And so if you're trying to kind of gauge a person, you have to see them.
Yep.
I'm not going to be able to see anything if it's not on. If you're not present, then I don't always know who's answering this way. Oh, well, I like that answer she gave. Sounds like that might be something I would say. Hey, we might get along well.
Yep.
But if you're not present, it's not even just the camera on, just being engaged, as the last one says, engaged in virtual discussions. Raising your hand in the chat or just turning your mic on and have conversations. Because that's when you have that dialogue, that's when you learn of those common experiences and things like that you can have conversation about.
Yep. And a lot of times, and I talked about this in my Hump Day 30 every Wednesday, lunch hour, we do a group, 11:30 to 12, put my plug out there. But I talk about a lot in regards to the visual, right? The visual part of the facial expressions, that communication through our body language, that 90%. If we don't see it, sometimes it's one of those things, especially as an educator, teachers will see that students aren't getting it. Like they can sit up there and pick up on that facial expression. That might be a key indicator for them to go back and revisit or reteach that particular point that you might have a struggle with. You might not be verbalizing it, but you might show it on your face. But if your camera's not on, they won't be able to see it, they don't know, and then now you don't get that engagement and you don't get that lesson. Active listening to the speaker. This helps, this helps the speaker just keep going. Just be able to know that you guys are actually listening. When you're looking at a blank screen or you sit up there again, and we kind of touched on how you can be an active listener on the last slide, and now hopefully you guys can get or understand the importance of active listening and being able to articulate how you can be a better active listener. Engaging in the virtual discussions, chatting, raising your hands, making sure you're showing your teachers that you were there. When the teachers break you down into small groups, or a lot of teachers go to different platforms. So they'll start on Teams, but then you guys will end up on Chalkboard, or you'll end up on a different platform in It's Learning or something that they sit up there and bring up. They need that participation and that interaction. It helps them build the relationship with you, especially in this setting. Understand it's a new age, And it's going to be different, and it's going to be a little bit more difficult, and it's going to be a little bit more challenging to do it, but we can do it. And if you help us and they help you, you guys are going to get everything that you're going to get out of it.
So next, we're going to watch a video about active listening.
So let me tell you, right? Are you listening to me right now? No. Are you really listening to me right now? I need your attention. Have you ever had a really good talk with a friend all day until the dark? She's listening to you and you can tell she cares. It makes your friendship stronger, that's clear. But now have you ever had a chat with someone and it really went bad? They weren't listening and you could tell. It's frustrating, it feels pointless as well. Good listening is active, yeah. But first let's talk about all the bad. Let's say you're giving a presentation to your class on the United Nations. You notice Aiden already raising his hand going, ooh, well chill out, man. He's not listening, he's thinking about his question. Either way, it's distracting and then some. And Winslow is looking out the window. And Jess is playing her Nintendo. And Russ interrupts your speech to say he visited the UN last week. Claire is slouched low in her chair. Her facial expression says, I don't care. They're not actively listening, not one. It's making your speech less than fun. When you're talking or whispering, I'm actively listening to show you I'm paying attention. I listen in. When we speak, it's a two-way street. I ask follow-up questions. Yes, indeed. When you're talking or whispering, I'm actively listening to show you I'm paying attention. I listen in. When we speak, it's a two-way street. I ask follow-up questions. Yes, indeed. Now, what does active listening mean? It means showing the person you're listening. You're not just passive like a statue. You need to actively listen. That's true. It's a two-way street, and that's why they give energy and you give it back. Step one is your posture. Sit up straight and lean in. Yeah, you got to. Step two, your facial expression. Pick a face that's gonna let them know you're listening. Maybe like this. If you're looking like this, they might call it quits. Oh, and use eye contact. Whoever's talking, keep your eyes on that. Step three, don't interrupt. Wait till the speaker is wrapping it up. No one likes when you talk over the rap. You can guess what I'm saying, but that doesn't make it nice. Step four, ask follow-up questions to learn more about what they mentioned. Yeah, that's the ticket, y'all. When you ask good questions, you're involved. Step five, paraphrase what they said in your own words. They'll be amazed. That makes it clear. You heard what they said and kept it organized in your head. You don't need big ears like a donkey. Listen to people and they'll listen back. When you're talking or whispering, I'm actively listening to show you I'm paying attention. I listen in. When we speak, it's a two-way street. I ask follow-up questions. Yes, indeed. When you're talking or whispering, I'm actively listening to show you I'm paying attention. I listen in. When we speak, it's a two-way street. I ask follow-up questions. Yes, indeed.
Okay, we're ready. It's quiz time.
Quiz time. Let's go.
So, let's see. Remember, we want you to put your answers in the chat.
Yep. All right, and just like the other ones, we're going to read them out just in case there's any technical difficulties or anything that you guys can't see, so that way you at least know. So we need you to put your answers in the chat. All right, here we go. Which of the following is a sign of active listening? A, paraphrasing or summarizing what someone has said. B, interrupting or talking over someone. C, changing the subject. Or D, being totally silent while someone else is talking. What you think, Ms. White?
Well, we know interrupting and changing the subject, you're not listening.
Yeah.
Now, being totally silent, you can be listening, but to be actively listening, that involves more of paraphrasing and summarizing.
Yeah, I think that's the key word, active.
Right. So I think, of course, A is going to be the correct answer.
All right, let's go with it. Ooh, yeah.
Number 2, which posture best shows that a person is actively listening? A, slouching. B, lying down. C, sitting up straight, or D, standing with your back to the speaker? This one, I guess, I think is pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, it's pretty simple.
You shouldn't be slouching, period.
I can lie down and be paying attention.
Well, I really don't think so.
Nah, you can't.
You can't. You'll be too relaxed.
Yeah.
So, and then standing with your back to the speaker, I mean, you can still hear the speaker, but again, those words actively listening is what we're looking for. So sitting up straight is your answer, C.
C it is. Let's go. Number 3. When you're actively listening, you should look at the ground. I said at the ground. That was funny. Let me do it again. When you're actively listening, you should look A, at the ground, B, at the speaker, C, out the window, or D, at a page of notes.
Well, you sure this shouldn't be out the window.
Nah, no daydreaming allowed. No daydreaming allowed.
Looking at the ground, that's a little sign, I guess, of boredom. How you just kind of looking.
And it can be disrespectful too.
Yeah. You're right. And now, viewing a page of notes, you could be viewing what the teacher is actually talking about.
Yep.
That's possible.
That is possible, but again, we want to make sure we always put the key word of active. So if we're actively listening, we're probably looking at the speaker.
Right. We want to be attentive to the person speaking.
Correct. And B for Brad.
Oh my.
Let's go.
Oh Lord, can someone please help Mr. Brad to get over himself? But I digress. Moving on. Which of the following is a verbal cue you can use to show you are actively listening? A, saying ooh ooh. B, interrupting. C, humming a familiar song. Or D, asking a follow-up question.
Ooh, 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 ooh. Ooh, I got the answer. I don't think it's A, because we can't say ooh, ooh, ooh all the time. That teachers don't like that. Don't nobody like that. That's just
Maybe in elementary school.
maybe, but ain't nobody in elementary school no more.
Okay.
All right.
So I think the best answer here would be D, asking a follow-up question.
I agree. Absolutely. All right, true or false? If you're facing the person speaking, you're always active listening. A, true, B, false. What you think, Ms. White?
Well, this is a test-taking strategy here because there are certain words that make things false. Always, only. So because it's saying always, I would say that it's false.
Okay, and unless it always is the case, but it's never really always the case. I would agree. B, it's false. And Ms. White, say it with us. B for Brad. Let's go. All right. Let's go.
Anywho, Zoe, number 6. Zoe is giving a presentation on the Midwest region of the U.S. If you're actively listening, you might A, speak over her to describe your trip to Nebraska. B, raise your hand in the middle of the presentation to invite Zoe to the mall after school. C, raise your hand at the end to ask her to clarify if Kansas is part of that region. Or D, stay quiet while daydreaming about your trip to Iowa in May. So let's help Zoe. When we're actively listening, Zoe is going to the Midwest region.
Right.
Well, she's giving a presentation.
Right.
So, let's see.
I'm gonna go with A. I'm from Nebraska. You gotta talk about Nebraska, baby.
So
let's go.
Speaking over her.
Yes, that's my answer, Ms. White.
Describe your trip to
Yes,
Nebraska.
that's right. Because
Put your
it's the
answers
good
in
life.
the chat, students. Please don't choose
I
A.
suggest you go with A if you're
Because
from
you
Nebraska.
should never be speaking over someone when they're trying to talk. That
Oh,
goes
you
back
right.
to that effective communication
Ooh, I hate
we
when
talked
she-
about last week.
I hate when she writes.
So, raise your hand in the middle of the presentation. You're trying to invite Zoe to the mall? No, not that one. Stay quiet while daydreaming.
Ain't nobody daydreaming about Iowa. Ain't nobody daydreaming about Iowa. Stop it.
So let's go with C. Raise your hand at the end to ask her to clarify. Clarification is important.
I got cousins in Kansas. We'll go with that one. What up, cuz? No gang signs. All right.
Okay.
Nigel is actively listening to Courtney. He is most likely to A, nod and trying to put himself in her shoes. B, telling Courtney she's wrong before she finishes speaking. Miss White sometimes does that. C, waiting patiently for his turn to speak so he can change the subject to something more interesting. Or D, facing away from Courtney. Ms. White, what you think?
I do not tell people they're wrong before they finish
Here's some
speaking.
results from the web.
Okay.
So I usually say you're wrong after. I wait.
My fault. She waits until you
I
get
wait.
to okay. All right. Okay.
Okay. And so now let's talk about Nigel and Courtney.
Okay. Right.
So let's see. I would say he is most likely waiting patiently for his turn to speak. See.
See, and I think you're wrong with that one because he's changing the subject to more interesting. I'm thinking it's A.
See, I didn't even read that
See,
part.
again, that's what
It's
again.
important to read everything.
I think it's gonna be A.
No, it's not A. So,
Oh,
well,
I think
yeah,
it's A.
it's A.
Yeah, I
Let's
think
go
it's
A.
A. Yeah,
Let's go
yeah,
A. Yes.
yeah. Miss Wright, no, she wrong.
Okay. William is talking to Jenna, but Jenna is not actively listening. That's probably what I was doing just now.
Probably.
William probably feels A, relaxed, B, frustrated, C, cheerful, D, ashamed. Well, let's say he's a little frustrated, B.
And we do B for?
No, we're not.
Okay, all right. Everyone knows why we do B. All right. Number 9. Why is active listening a two-way street? A, because if you listen to others, you can force them to listen to you. Or B, both the listener and the speaker give and receive something. Or C, because it means you're walking and being active while you listen. Or D, because two people are saying the same thing at the same time.
Let's go with B, because both the listener and the speaker give and receive something.
And last name Bradley. Let's go.
We're going to say B for bulldogs.
Okay.
Okay, last one before we get our results. True or false? Even if you're silent while someone else speaks, you might not be actively listening. True or false? I'm gonna go with true. I think I was silent when you were speaking and I was not listening.
Wow. I'm gonna go with true as well. Let's see what we're doing. Let's see what we got. Let's go. That's
Did
what I'm
you get
talking
100
about.
students? Make sure all your answers are in the chat.
Yes.
I hope you got 100.
Look at Miss White with her bib on. Stop playing.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Well, students, that concludes SEL Session 5, Relationship Building Through Active Listening. Remember, we wanted you to learn active listening skills to help you build those positive, healthy relationships. And this is part 2 of that relationship building because we had the communication, the effective communication, and then the active listening. So those things are critical in building healthy relationships.
If you want to help someone, hear someone, you have to be able to listen and actively know what's going on in somebody else's mind, in somebody else's world. It doesn't make you subject to them. It just makes you in a better position to possibly respond, maybe to help them, or it could even be an opportunity to help yourself. If you listen carefully, you could see opportunities where everybody can benefit. How many like a win-win situation where it comes out of active listening? When you're listening to what somebody has to say in the room, you're not just yeah, you know what I'm saying? And then you can actually feel like you're part of the group and a part of the party. You know what's going on. You're not somebody who has to hear it another way or from somebody else. So practice active listening by pausing and just counting to 5 or counting to 10 and ask yourself, can you restate what that person said in another way or in a new way? That shows that you were listening. If you were like me, sometimes I have to write things down. I have to take notes. But that's good because you can go back and say, well, did I hear what they said or this and that? Well, no, I have an active note that says they wanted this or they wanted that. So that's a good way to consider active listening, is to also write certain things down or write notes to yourself about what was said.
So now we want you to go ahead and apply what we're preaching. Come to the 1015 group. We're going to see if you can actively listen. We can see if you can get involved, see if we can have that discussion. And we're going to be able to recap and kind of talk about some of these things, some of these different scenarios, some of these different situations that maybe you didn't do that great with, but we can sit up there and hopefully improve so we can do better the next time.
And remember, we have to talk about that difficult conversation that we had to have, and we're not using names. Remember what Mr. Bradley said. So come to the Live Lit lesson ready to have those conversations and about making new friends. We really want to hear from you and how to make friends virtually, because you can help someone else out who's actually struggling with that, because some of you are doing well making friends virtually. So this is all about helping one another build those healthy relationships. See you next time.
1015.